G'day, hi and welcome. All right, World War III update. Okay, I'm always trying to do these bizarre beginnings. I got you guys good on one there when I went like that. I was pretending I was talking, but there was like no sound. I could imagine some of you. Oh my God, my headphones, my speakers, what's going on? It wasn't very nice, but I thought it was funny. All right, World War III update. It's Neil McWash. Oh, it's not too bad. I always have to make sure my camera lighting is the worst possible at all times in the worst resolution. It is a skill that I have. I mean, again, I probably have the most popular YouTuber with the worst camera resolution. I probably hold a record for it, I swear to God. But whatever, these things don't require a lot of high production quality. This one's going to be predominantly around Syria. I'm almost afraid to turn on the news now. Like, I really am, because, you know, the mainstream media does not respect the conspiracy realm. And here's what I mean. They keep calling us conspiracy theorists, and then they keep agreeing with us. It's like, which is it? Pick one. I will do a video on well, I don't have all the details. I might wait a day or two. I know a lot of people want me to do things right away, but sometimes I like to wait a day or two about the bombing that went on in New York State there. There was, one was in Syracuse, the other one was in somewhere in New York City, I think. 29 injured or whatever. I still don't know all the details about it. I'm sure it'll be all over the news today, so I'll cover that out. I just want to, you know, because I know there's going to be, right away, it's to the point where conspiracy flies. But I will bring it on this. This might be a cover for something else. Sometimes, usually when events like this just happen out of nowhere, sometimes there's something else going on in the world that, you know, but then again, there's always so much going on. Is it coincidence? I don't know. We do live in crazy times. So I guess I'm going to start with Israel on this one. The Israeli government is preparing for a drill. They're anticipating in the next war 230,000 missiles to be coming at them. Now, they're mostly talking Hezbollah rockets and stuff like that, little stuff, but they're probably also talking about Iran. Now, Iran, how many rockets do they have, long-range rockets do they have? Some people estimate around 1,500. I've heard 500 to 1,500, 200 to tens of thousands. We really don't know, because Iran has their long-range rockets about, 1,500 feet underground or something like that in these, basically they're going to shoot at their natural crevices where they can shoot these rockets out, ballistic rockets out, and they can land wherever. And we know that the ballistic range of some of these rockets is, 1,300 miles. They'll reach into southern Europe from there. So that type of thing. And Israel said, and this came out of the Cole and Powell email leaks, that Israel's prepared, or in retaliation to Iran, to use 200 nukes against them. Now, when you ask Israel whether they have nuclear warheads or not, and there's estimated again with nukes that they have between, I guess, 200 and 600 and something is what I've heard. God knows how many they would have. Israel's official statement is no comment. Now, this also kind of goes against the law a bit, where Israel basically is, basically the U.S. is not supposed to render aid to people with nuclear weapons. And they just got a pay raise, by the way. So I don't know how much Canada will be kicking in here. But the Israelis are getting now $38 billion from the U.S. To ramp up things. So again, $38 billion, that's not going to helping homeless vets. That's not going to creating jobs in the United States. It's just going to Israel, because Israel, for some reason, is your best ally in the Middle East, or the Saudi Arabia. I don't know which one it is. That you keep hearing those two are the best allies in the Middle East. But that said, the U.S. aid is kind of illegal, because they're not supposed to be giving it to particularly people with nuclear weapons. But that's what came out of the Colin Powell leaks. Also, Israel is putting out a new spy satellite, the OVEC, and this thing again is I guess that's a part of the 38 billion in aid. Maybe that's the last round of aid being sucked up. I don't know. The thing about that is, again, we see the constant the constant ramping up for war. Now, should I jump into that right away? Yeah, maybe I will. Okay. Or should I? Yeah. Okay. No. I'll go to South Korea. I'll keep it in the line I got because I find this stuff at random, so I gotta kind of put it in at random. So anyway, Israel again. They're I think the writing's on the wall for Israel. Just because you can't create all that destabilization, and a lot of people, what do you mean destabilization? There's, like Israel's, always the victim. It's always the victim. Well, it's not. The Greater Israel Project, I think, is going to be what destroys Israel. Because you can't balkanize and arm all these jihadi groups. And if you have any doubt that the United States and Israel are backing these ISIS after what happened last night and the night before or whatever, from the making of this video, I think is pretty clear who's arming who. But anyway, again, ISIS, the luckiest jihadists on the planet. They can, avoid radar. They find all kinds of weapons, and everything always seems to work in their favor for some reason. Again, the goal is to overthrow Assad. So again, we had those 2 Mossad agents last year. Again, don't be afraid to go over some of my older World War III updates because some of the information there, what happens back there, sometimes you see, okay, something going on back there, and then you see it playing out now. It's connecting these dots, right? And again, I'm not trying to demonize the Jewish people. I do have a thing about the Jewish elites with the Zionism, the neoconism, whatever you want to call it. Neocon is like the politically correct version of a Zionist, basically. All wars for Israel, all wars are bankers' wars, all wars are for Israel, for the Greater Israel Project. And if you don't know about the Greater Israel Project, you need to go do a little bit of history on it. I already did a big video on it, and it kind of tells you everything that they planned back then, we're seeing now. It's not a coincidence. All this stuff is not, ISIS didn't just come out of nowhere. These people are, again, most of these guys are poorer than dirt. Their AKs, if they were funding themselves, their AKs would be out of bullets in 5 minutes. That type of thing. But yet, their rifles never run out of ammo. These are people that can't even afford to eat. So how can they afford something like that? Somebody has to be supplying them. Now, I'm not saying the Russians are saints either. Again, you got to look at it as no good guys in charge. The world banks are basically using the people against each other to prop up. Again, every bullet that's fired, every bomb that drops is a piece of debt being cycled. The United States has a debt and death-based economy. Max Kaiser coined that, and I think he hit the nail on the head so well on that. I bring it up all the time because it makes sense. You either take our currency, the petrodollar, or you get democracy JDAMs. And a lot of what's going on in Syria has to do with that, but it's really, Syria is really the longer con is a destabilization against Russia and China. But, and I've talked about it before. But it also, the plan that's working out in the Middle East right now is exactly what the Greater Israel Project was discussed many years ago. And that seems to be what it is. It just, of course Israel will deny it. They always deny it, and then they'll call you an anti-Semite to boot, racist, bigot, anti-Semite, anything to shut you up. But that's not working anymore because, well, again, it's like, you can call me racist, bigot, anti-Semite, whatever. I just have to point the body count at the body count to make my argument. Reality will just take over. So that's kind of, with Israel, again, they're ramping up for war too, but their goal is to stay out of the war. The idea is to have everybody kill each other. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. If they're fighting, like Henry Kissinger would say, if they're fighting each other, they're not fighting us. That's the whole point of divide and conquer. And it does work very well. You see it with the Black Lives Matter in the States, again, funded by George Soros. Henry Kissinger, George Soros, Zbigniew Brzezinski. These are the guys at the top for the Rothschilds, Rockefellers. It sounds conspiratorial, but again, you can just find the policies that link back to the people. You can find the organizations like the White Helmets there in Syria. It goes right back to George Soros and the Open Society or the MoveOn.org for Black Lives Matter. All these, endowments of democracy or whatever that George Soros funds. These people end up all over everywhere they end up, there's like death and destruction. Anywhere George Soros money goes, death and destruction follows. And with Israel, their goal was to strike Iran. I don't think they're going to get away with it. I don't think they can. The Syrians have clearly shot down an Israeli jet and drone. I'm not sure what type of jet. The Israelis are definitely, basically denying it. Now, someone said Israel wasn't a part of NATO. I thought they were. I really thought they were, but maybe I'm wrong. But it doesn't really matter because, Israel has the best U.S. Army money can buy, right? That type of thing. So, yeah, so Israel, again, I think, this plan is backfiring on them. And it's not just them. I mean, they've got all government. They have like 40 different governments, including mine, in on the deal here. to all this destabilization, this war on terror. That's really isn't a war on terror. It's a war for the petrodollar. Again, John Kerry said it best that if we don't remove Assad, the petrodollar will fall. And he's right. He is right. This is the war. Like if people, particularly like I covered in my last World War III update, Libyans, if they start selling their oil outside the U.S. dollar, which they've already done, but if they could start to completely do that, that's going to start sending U.S. treasuries back home. Saudi Arabia is threatening to do that. If the 9/11 families sue Saudi Arabia, they're going to, again, they're blackmailing each other, right? But the thing is it's the big guys that are going to take the brunt of this stick. The little guys, again, we don't need to bail. We can do the Iceland solution: bail out the people, send the bankers to jail, and stop this madness. Because that's what funds it all. Again, wars can't happen without bankers behind them. All wars are bankers' wars. All right, so I guess that's about all I got to say about Israel for now. So they're clearly preparing for getting their ass kicked. I know it's not 73, it's not the 68. It's the times have changed. The Golan Heights is no longer the barrier it once was with the advent of cruise missiles, and it's only a matter of time before Assad gets a cruise missiles and can fight back against Israel. Now they're not going to fight back against Israel right yet because, again, as Syria stabilizes the region, like I say. The outer regions, Turkey, Syria, or Israel, and Saudi Arabia will be destabilized. Why? Because payback's going to be a bitch. That type of thing. So, anyway, moving on. U.S. sending more bombers, probably B-1s, B-2s, B-52s to South Korea for more drills. Again, I don't know how many. There can't be very many bombers left in the United States. They probably just send them over from Guam. But again, I think a third of the U.S. Navy is in that region. And the Philippines, I mean, that guy, my God, Maduro, whatever his name is there, this guy is something else. Cursing Obama up and down. He's basically pretty much saying, we're not going to take U.S. F-16s because we don't need them to fight the war on drugs. Now, this guy has killed about 3,000 people since he's taken power in the war on drugs. He's going to be a dictator. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I think he's going to be a bad guy in the long run, but he's like Obama would say, he's a colorful character who says colorful things. Obama doesn't even know what to make of him. Like this guy's like calling him a son of a whore. He's bashing him up and down. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's just it would be I find it comical, and I like it because Philippines doesn't have nukes. If they had nukes, then I'd be kind of scared of the guy. But he's like, okay, well, he's taking care of his own country. Now, they're already starting to we're going to be doing regime change in the Philippines. Who didn't see this coming, right? So the rhetoric's sort of going to start. So give it a year. They're going to be removing this guy. This guy is killing drug cartels, which would hurt the CIA because, the Philippines, yes, and a lot of, like South America and stuff like that, a lot of these drug cartels are backed by the U.S. government. It funds black projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people, particularly Americans, after the Fast and Furious programs, are like, okay, we run guns to the Mexican cartels who end up shooting our border agents. And, people are like, well, and yet, it's to break this big drug ring. Okay, well, the guy in the Philippines is just killing the cartels. In Mexico, you got that civil war going on between the Knights Templar drug cartel and the I guess we call them hellhounds, vigilantes, ex-law enforcement, military, people with a conscience, and they're running around with AKs and masks on, and they're killing. There's a big civil war going on there. Doesn't make it on the mainstream media, but again, when the people push back, the corrupt will fail. There's always more honest people than there is corrupt people. So that's something to consider. But yeah, more bombers. Again, if anything, it would be so easy to invade the United States now because everything is over there somewhere. And I think that's part of the plan. I don't know. You got the Navy over there. You got all the bombers over there. It's like, is there anything left at home? Like, geez. Of course, more training going on in Florida and stuff like that. You got Apache helicopters flying. I'm pretty sure it was in Florida. Again, flying all over the place, doing these drills out for the public to see. These drills, I mean, it's not like the military doesn't have bases and combat towns and stuff like that to do all their drills. They're doing it in the public. Some people speculate to get people used to the idea of always seeing the military on the street, martial law. So in other words, no different than South America or, or some of these Asian countries and stuff like that, where it is, or Middle Eastern countries, where it is military rule, that type of thing. Very scary when you think about that. The Sun UK warns of civil jihad basically, pretty much, all throughout Europe. Like this is going to be something that, and again, that's part of the 10th Crusade. There was a bar brawl in Germany the other day between migrants, and that's probably last week or whatever. Now the new one is in Germany. They want the girls to start. They're putting on commercials again. The German taxpayer is paying for their these crazy ideas. On TV, they got like this. I didn't see the whole commercial, but this girl's like, this Turkish girls wear the niqab or the hijab, the thing covers the head, and so do I. Here's this pretty blue-eyed, blonde-haired German girl, with the pigtails and all that. And I like it. See how fashionable it is. So what they're saying is we can't conquer the invaders, so let's can't beat them, join them. That's what they're trying to convince people of. I think that's going to backfire. Again, I'm still predicting Britain to be the first to snap for the 10th Crusade of the big battle royal, but we're going to probably see a lot of small skirmishes. It won't be a Crusader battle until there's a body count on both sides. Right now, the body count is pretty much the migrants are killing everybody, raping everybody, chopping people up into pieces, doing something. Is it all of them? No, but I mean, it's pretty obviously the problems out of there. Women just cannot walk alone anymore in these countries. That type of thing. Going back to the Philippines. The Philippines will not be joining the U.S. drills. They say we don't want to provoke China. We don't want to start trouble in the region. So again, it's coming from this Maduro guy, and that's a good way to be. So, however, Japan is going to join the patrols with the United States for the freedom of navigation. So you got the Philippines saying no, we're not going to do this because it's destabilizing the region intentionally. Yes, the Philippines is trying to claim the islands like the Japanese and the Chinese and Taiwan and Malaysia, and I think there's like 5 countries trying to claim the Diaoyu Sakaku Islands because it's the resources there. There's minerals there. There's oils. There's gases. There's everything. So it's not these islands that are invaluable. It's what's underneath the islands, right? Now the thing is like I've always said, the U.S. arms the people they have to fight in the future, and that's the same with NATO. We back this side. We pick the winners and losers. And then in the future, we have to fight them. They armed Saddam to fight the Iranians. Then they had to overthrow Saddam, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes and it goes and goes. They armed the Iranians, and it's just regime change after regime change. It's been going on for years and years and years, and people are getting sick of it. But the thing is with the Asians, one thing, and again, if you're Asian, I get it. There's exception to the rule, but even here in Canada, when you talk from like one Asian to another, Asians hate each other. They hate each other with a passion. You can call me racist, big if you want, but they hate each other. Call a Japanese guy Chinese. Accuse a Chinese guy of being Japanese. They're going to punch your lights out. They hate each other. Call a North Korean a South Korean. Call a Vietnamese, Chinese or whatever. They're going to get mad at you. They really hate each other. So yes, right now the United States is playing well with some of these countries. Malaysia, Taiwan, Japan, etc., etc. Philippines is on the rocks. South Korea. But at some point, if a war does kick off, these, the South Koreans will fight with the Japanese at some point. They don't like each other either. I mean, again, just, you can see the protests in these countries, and it's like, you have Japanese people protesting, South Koreans as well as Chinese. They hate the Chinese more now, and the Chinese hate the Japanese more right now. There's a lot of bad blood in that region, and you just have to look at the historical, how they fought each other over the years. And stuff like that. And again, the Asians, historically speaking, are the worst to their prisoners. Nobody beats the Asians for cruelty when it comes to their prisoners. So again, you really want to be, stuck in that conflict when we don't need to be starting this conflict. The freedom of navigation stuff, again, this idea of provoking China. Again, these islands are been disputed for over 300 years. So why is it important now? Well, the United States has to get a war going now. It is getting desperate. With what's going on, again, with the bombs going off, could that be a precursor to, are they false flags? I don't know. I mean, again, I think a lot of it could be just the idea of, there's so much destabilization around the world because of U.S. and Israeli foreign policy. Like Paul Craig Roberts said, it's designed to get as much hatred towards the United States and Israel as possible, so they always have an enemy. After the Soviet Union fell, there wasn't really an enemy, so you had to create, get this whole terrorism thing going. It's an industry. War's a racket, right? Yeah, but anyway, okay, now, yeah, the U.S. gets kicked out of, anyway, they basically, the rebels, the U.S.-backed rebels have kicked them out of an area in Syria. They're calling them pigs, crusaders, infidels, etc., etc. These are the people the U.S. are arming. So-called McCain's friends, the good guys, right? The ones that want to overthrow Assad. They're kicking them out. Now, shortly after that, and of course, the YPG Kurds are putting American flags on their bases as a warning to the troops. The rumor is that the U.S. troops are putting these up, saying, no, we're here with the Kurds, don't bomb it. And that's to Turkey. So again, Turkey wouldn't be armed to the teeth. Turkey wouldn't be a problem if we never armed these people in the first place, right? But Turkey joined NATO, so it would play well with Israel. But, as we see, Turkey's really kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. And because the Turks said they're going to do airstrikes pretty much on everybody there, mainly the Turks are mainly there to fight the Kurds, which, they're going to kill Canadian soldiers, they're going to kill American soldiers, British soldiers, everybody that's in there. And right now, they're starting to get a big pile of Canadian and British. The Canadian soldiers aren't increasing in number. You don't hear from them at all. I think we're trying to stay low-key. But the thing is, what happens when a Turkish bomb kills American soldiers, Canadian soldiers, British soldiers? How are we going to turn a blind eye to Turkey on that one? That's a clear act of war. And they know, and again, putting these flags on the bases, well, I mean, ISIS could put American flags on their bases. You don't know. That type of thing. So, yeah, it is what it is. So it's showing that the coalition is falling apart. We shouldn't be in there in the first place. Canada should not be in there in the first place. It's not our conflict. We don't need to be in there. No, we don't need to be helping to do regime change just because it makes Israel feel better. We're not going to fighting the wars for Israel all the time gets our guys killed. And that's exactly what's going on. Israel backs these rebels very openly. They treat them in their hospitals. It's just when they're ISIS, they just have to check their ISIS badge at the door, put on moderate rebel badge when they're in the hospitals getting medals and stuff like that in Israel. As far as the jet being shot down, it was the Israel was going after, once again, Assad's guys with the jets and the drones, but it turned out, yes, the artillery that came into the Golan Heights was from the rebels. Surprise, surprise. So, once again, Israel never strikes the rebels. They strike Assad's guys. They open fire at Assad's guys. So, I believe it was an S-200 missile system that shot down. Again, it's really hard to confirm it, right? Because the Israelis are denying it, and they have to. Because, yeah. But anyway, next thing goes. Over there in France, if you haven't seen this one's going to make you laugh and cry. And if you're in France, some of my viewers are from France, so I don't know what to tell you on this one. But in France, the de-radicalization programs are 2 kilometers from nuclear power plants. What could possibly go wrong? So, do you really think taking these people, we just need to give them therapy? And no, you're taking a 1,500-year-old radical ideology of jihad and, basically Islamification and conquering, following, basically, Muhammad, and thinking that, okay, well, a little bit of tender love and care will take care of this. And let's do it as close to a nuclear power plant as possible. I'm sure if they could have found a closer place, they would have. It's not going to work. They need to kick people out of the country. Europe needs to do that. Hungary is the only one. Hungary actually might be actually a democracy. It might actually be a democracy. Why? Because they actually putting it to the people whether they want mass immigration. Not to the United Nations, not to the EU. They're asking their people, here, vote on it. Do you want open borders or not? I wonder which way the vote's going to go. But they won't do this in France, which is supposed to be the birthplace of democracy. No, they need to kick these people out. Oh, but these poor refugees, detain them in internment camps. If they're not a real refugee, send them home. It's cheaper than the welfare. Cut off the welfare, number one. Cut off the welfare in Germany and France, all that. 90% of them will go home. They'll just leave. They can't get free stuff to leave. The rest of them, that are running amok, they need to be detained. Again, it's like this lunacy, and there's no, it's politically incorrect, we might be called racist. You're letting your country being conquered rather than be called racist. It's craziness. It's craziness. The first report was the U.S. hit their own rebels on northern from a northern level. Well, it turns out it wasn't. It was the Syrian army. They hit them in 3 spots, I believe. The body counts between 60 and 80 and 100. I keep hearing different numbers. Nobody knows how many the U.S. killed there. Once again, this area was way out in the middle of nowhere. Very hard to make this mistake. Once again, ISIS got lucky. They basically, the U.S. did the airstrikes. They apologized for it, said it was an honest mistake, just kind of like their airdrops, 15 or 20 times, or basically ongoing. Where these, again, these Globemaster heavy lift airplanes, transport airplanes, you have to have a minimum of 400 hours before you can even step foot into that cockpit. The navigators, these guys got to be able to navigate anywhere in the world, including the Arctic. These guys don't make mistakes where they drop. They drop where they're told to drop. Okay, so it's not the crews. So is it the intelligence? Well, I don't think so, because once again, the bombs can precisely hit Assad's troops very openly. They hit right after the Russians have already called a UN, the UN Council on this. I don't think it's the Russians know that they're just pandering to the world stage. They're not really making a plea because they know that the UN is a part of NATO. And again, even the United Nations has said the Syrian and Libyan wars and Iraq wars are all illegal wars. They didn't have the United Nations was created so you would never get a Third Reich again. And look at this, you know what I mean? So that Germany couldn't invade Poland again or whatever, make its way into Russia, that type of thing. So you couldn't have that, and then look at Syria, Iraq, and Libya, all illegal wars, that type of thing. So yeah, so they hit these rebels. The Russians, the rebels broke the ceasefire right away. The deals are not even done. And John Kerry comes out there and says, "Oh yeah, no, we agreed on this, that, and the other thing." And then they're like, "No, we didn't." The Russians are like, "No, we didn't. We didn't agree on this." It says they do the same thing with Iran. "Oh no, Iran agreed to get rid of this and that and the other thing." And they air that on the TV, and then the Iranians saying, "No, we didn't come to a deal." You're smoking crack or something. We didn't come to a deal. And then when you hear it on TV, the Iranians are starting their nuclear program again. Well, they never agreed to stop it. They never agreed to, and I don't think the Iranians are going to enrich uranium to make nukes. They're going to buy the nukes if they don't already have them. I'm pretty sure they already have them. If Saudi Arabia can get them, so can the Iranians. Again, they already have them. So I think if anything, they're working with the North Koreans. You'd have Iranian scientists and North Korean scientists working together. They do trade with each other. There was that North Korean freighter that got stopped in 2010, sending North Korean missiles. Technology to the Iranians. I'm sure much of it has made it through, and now other supply lines have probably made it through other means, whatever. So obviously, they're just going to say, well, how about we just buy from the North Koreans? It's cheaper that way, much cheaper. So this at the time, because this is the one story that's not on the mainstream. At least I'll have to see if it is there today. But this is kind of like on. This is a big thing. Let's talk about how, again, ISIS, and for those who don't think, again, I can imagine a lot of my American audience think I'm always bashing the U.S. I'm not. I'm bashing the government. Most Americans, I think, are, and a lot of them are soldiers that are in my comments too, and I hear from you guys around the world, and I'm glad I do. Because it's the same reason why 22 veterans, basically commit suicide every day in the States, and it's about 2 a day here in Canada, is they know the wars are a lie. The newer recruits, they haven't experienced the hells of war like Iraq or Afghanistan, and then find out that it's a lie when you get there. Again, I'm never putting down the soldiers. The soldiers are not the ones that really understand, but once they understand, what do, right? And a lot of them are quitting. A lot of them are speaking, just like Vietnam. It's the same thing. And we call these people traitors and unpatriotic, whatever. These are the most patriotic people you can get when they're trying to spare the bloodshed of their own countrymen through faulty wars. And what you got going on here, is basically ISIS, the luckiest jihadist group in history. They find 2,300 Humvees, about 70 Abrams tanks, 150 artillery guns, tens of thousands of small arms, in the hundreds of thousands, unlimited supply of ammo, M16 rifles that they don't even use in that region, and ammo with it. Again, well, Israel's mainly supplying the ammo, the M6, the 5.56 ammo. They find in Assyria, they find a cache bed of anti-tank American-made TOW missiles, ones Assad never even used. His troops never even used that stuff. How lucky is that? And then airdrop after airdrop, and then the Syrian rebels are knocking these guys out of Aleppo, kicking the shit out of them. Oh my God, we got to give up. And oh my God, the Americans screwed up. They just flew right over us and hit the Syrian army. Now we can take that region again. And the moderate Syrian rebels, the Al Qaeda affiliates, which it's such like the Russians are trying to get definition of who's a moderate, who's not. And some of the moderates are, okay, Al-Nusra, oh, that's the former Al-Nusra, Al-Asham or whatever. That's the former Al-Nusra, which was the former Al-Qaeda. Oh, Al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda don't get along. Al-Nusra is way too radical for Al-Qaeda. So we're going to change their name. They're all the same guys. It's all the same guys. Yeah, so they got lucky again. The airstrikes just, again, pinpoint accuracy, bad intelligence. I'm pretty sure they can distinguish the Syrian army very easily from the rebels. I think the Syrian army, just watch the footage yourself of Syrian army. Syrian army and rebels, yes, there is a lot of similarities. Yes, there's, the Syrian army isn't that well equipped in comparison to other militaries. They don't always wear regulation uniforms, etc., etc. But you can pretty much pick out the Syrian army. Heck, the flags will give it away alone. But a lot of times, the Syrian army announces where they are. They announce where they are so that they're not getting hit. But this was a purpose, this wasn't a mistake. This was not an accident. Desert Storm, okay, yes, there were friendly fire incidents, few and far between. There was an F-16 that dropped a JDAM on Canadians. There was an F-16 that dropped on British troops as well, accidentally. It might have been an A-10 or whatever. There was 2 helicopters shot down by U.S. forces. That type of thing, by accident. This happened through a 15-year span of war, or 13-year span of war. Okay, this doesn't happen often, and that happened from 20,000 feet, whatever. And the incident was the pilot. The one incident was the British started a generator, and it did an energy spike. It was detected on and the guy didn't have clearance to drop. And he dropped his bombs, and that's how he killed the British. How he killed the Canadians, I can't remember how they killed the Canadians, but it was similar. It was pilot error. Okay, you're not going to get pilot error 3 times in a row with that many pilots in the air. No, it's just not going to be. They're just not that. ISIS is just not that lucky. They're just not that lucky. What are they going to get next week? More anti-tank weapons. Which. UN convoy after UN convoy of food keeps accidentally getting into the hands of ISIS. Like the UN can't figure out. Well, we always get our convoys, aid convoys hijacked here. Oh, let's keep sending them here. You know what I mean? Same thing that happens with Boko Haram. They keep sending. So it's clearly they're supplying. That's how these guys can eat. That's how these guys get ammo, etc., etc. That's why the Syrians have said they're not accepting any, unless it's coming from the United Nations, and I guess it's going to be escorted or whatever. They're not letting food go through. Now, this reminds me of something that Assad said. They're like, Assad said, okay, well, we can't even stop the UN aid coming in. How the heck are we going to stop the terrorists? And we know when the aid's coming in, the food aid's coming in. So how do we stop the terrorists? It's going to be one at a time. Now, you have to understand, the Syrians are kicking ass there. That's why the United States always seems, and same with Israel, the United States and Israel always seem to attack the... Again, Israel does airstrikes on the Syrian army. They don't do it on the moderate rebels or the so-called ISIS. They never attack ISIS. The Kurds are there to keep ISIS fighting in Syria. That's all they do. So the United States drops leaflets before they take out ISIS. Now, let's say hypothetically Donald Trump wins, which he won't. It will be a Hillary Clinton win. I am very convinced of that. Maybe she kicks the bucket before. If she kicks the bucket before the election. Even Joe Biden isn't healthy enough. He had, basically, had to take off the top of his head and take some stuff out of his brain there. He's got problems too. These people are so old. That's the problem, But if she dies before the election, there's so much rumors of the election being canceled now. I think I called that one pretty good. Who can't see it coming? The other thing that might cancel an election is terrorist attacks, that type of thing. But you have to understand, they have to remove the Assad government. But it's not the Assad government. Even Assad said it himself. He says, I'm not here because I'm a dictator. I'm here because the people want me. Now, could there be proof to this? Okay, let's look at the region. The region is a very temperamentally dangerous region. Look at what Syria was before John McCain got in there with his buddies and started arming the moderate rebel groups. And Syria was probably the most stable Middle Eastern country. It was probably the most secular, that type of thing. It was very, very, very stable. I mean, yes, Assad is a dictator. You have to be a dictator in that region. You're telling me the Saudi royal families aren't dictators? You're telling me the Israeli government aren't dictators in their region? Of course they are. They have to run it with an iron fist, or the whole thing, like Muammar Gaddafi said, would fall apart. But Assad makes a good point here. He goes, if I was against the people, they would overthrow me. Now you say, yes, but that's who the moderate rebels are they're trying to overthrow. Yes, but election-wise, the people, and you can listen to the Syrian people, like, we don't really like Assad, but the alternative is death. So it's like, self-preservation kicks in, they vote for Assad all the time. But the Syrian Arab army is your biggest vote of confidence. Why? They're, like Assad said, they're not fighting for me, they're fighting for Syria. I support Syria. I support it as the independent nation it was. So it won't be balkanized by the Greater Israel Project. It might, the idea, and you keep hearing John Kerry come out there, oh yes, we're going to break it up into this region, and the Syrians agreed with us. Assad said, we didn't agree with this. We're not going to give this part of Syria to this group and this part of Syria. That's what they want. They want it all broken up into little pieces so that you can't get all these little minor ethno-states so that there can be no challenge to Israel. But it's going to backfire because when Syria stabilizes, and it will, I think the Syrian Arab army at some point, with the help of the Iranians, the Russians, and of course the main key factor here is the Russians. Now, will the Russians stay the course? Who knows? If the Russians pull out tomorrow, Syria is done. However, the Syrians might be able to hold their own pretty soon because they've been getting trained by the Russians for the past year and a half. They've been getting, or however long the Russians have been in there, they've been training the Syrian army basically with Spetsnaz. So these guys are going to be getting, they're already battle hardened. Now they're going to be more coordinated, and you can see it town after town after town after town. They're going to take their country back. There's no doubt about that. Every time they call a ceasefire, it's the rebels that break the ceasefire, that type of thing. So the Syrians aren't stupid. I'm very surprised that they did shoot down an Israeli jet and the drone. But I'm thinking that's coming on the new confidence of the new Russian weaponry coming in. Plus, there's Russian forward observers there who, trust me, I'm sure they're getting killed as well. But these guys are going to be guiding the Syrian Arab army with some pretty good intelligence, that type of thing. If the Russians can seem to hit their targets, I'm not saying the Russians aren't killing civilians. They've got to be killing a pile of civilians as well, but with these airstrikes. But they've got better boots on the ground to guide into the, they're actually going after the terrorists. There are no moderate rebels. They're just people that are trying to overthrow the government. Now, Assad has given them an out several times. I don't know how well this out would actually work, but if you put your weapons up and go home, you get amnesty. That's what Assad has done this several times. Now, as far as the chemical weapons, and no, it's always the rebels every time. The UN comes out after. No, it's not Assad using. Assad got rid of his chemical weapons. He's not using chemical weapons. It's always the rebels. There hasn't been one case where the Syrian army. The barrel bombs. These barrel bombs are like they're nothing. The 500-pound, the 700-pound, the 1,000-pound bombs that are dropping from the Syrian jets do way more damage. These barrel bomb things are kind of stupid. Whatever. Again, I'm not saying it's war, so a lot of civilians are getting killed, a lot of people getting caught in the crossfire, whatever. But this war would not be there had it not been for U.S. regime change and Israeli regime change. That, again, it's the same thing in Ukraine. Moving on, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I haven't seen it on the mainstream media yet, but sometimes it takes a week or so before you see it on the mainstream media. The mainstream media is always so far behind the alternative media now. When they do cover something, they cover it like 5 seconds and that's it. They don't give it any coverage. What I was going to say about Trump, if Trump wins, he will put boots on the ground in Syria, yes. Like official U.S. military tanks, just like Iraq and Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Fox, Iraqi Liberation Oil, and all the other plethora of nonstop, whatever. They will do that. They will fight with this, probably not with the Syrian Arab army, but not against them. So that force multiplier, they would, and even if Trump has said, we'll fight with the Russians, we'll work together. That would not only improve or stabilize Syria, but that would also improve Russia-U.S. relations. Now, you can't trust the Russian government, period, but, at least it takes us away from the brink of thermonuclear war. EU Army is already talking about how to get into space with the militarize the space, that type of thing. So interesting there. Yeah, the EU Army, I think, is the writing on the wall. Look, it's only a matter of time, but it looks like, NATO is going to go down. Turkey will probably be the first real pillar of NATO going down. I can't see Finland and Sweden joining NATO at this stage of the game. No one can afford NATO. The money you waste in NATO, like Canada would have a much better equipped military, which Canada does have a well-equipped military. Some stuff is a little bit old, but every military, even in the United States, some of their stuff is old and shambles. Yes, we do really need to desperately replace those Sea King helicopters, etc., etc. But the money we waste on the United Nations and NATO, we could have a non-interventionist military, but I'm more nationalist. I don't care about getting into skirmishes over there somewhere. You could do foreign aid and via military during disaster relief stuff. I love doing that because, okay, yes, we'll take care of our people here first, but you can have a budget for that because it makes Canada's soldiers look so humanitarian. So humanitarian aid, real humanitarian aid, fly in helicopters, drop off the food and water and blankets and medicine, build some shelters, etc., etc. I don't mind using our military foreign to do that. Domestically, brunt stick. You mess with the horns, you get the bull. Have the best fighter jets, the best warships, the best tanks. Have an adequate number of them. That type of thing. I like the way Switzerland does things a lot more. Non-interventionist. Nobody knows. You never hear people out of Switzerland. The problem is people in the government get this idea. As soon as some criticisms come along, well, we're not using nobody's attacking us, so we don't need a military. Well, did your house burn down last week? No. Well, let's get rid of the fire department then. You know what I mean? Like, have it, not need it, need not have it. No. You need a good, strong military, state of the art, better than anybody else, better trained, and Canadians are usually top of, like, you hear other militaries praise our militaries all the time of how professional they are. But they're few and far between. That's the problem. They're not big numbers. But the thing is you don't need huge numbers in your country if you can have, you restructure the military a little bit, again, so that, okay, yeah, standing military, you only have this, but when the guy's done his service or whatever, let him take his rifle home. You know what I mean? Let him take his rifle home with him. The cost is really that, and store the ammo at home too. Let him use that, again, deregulate the gun regulations. It makes your country invasion proof. If you have a gun behind every blade of grass. It might not do much against the air power, but the troops will never get on the ground, without getting shot in the face, that type of thing. So, yeah, you can save your country just by being so well armed. And Canada is pretty well armed. I mean, there's, 33, 34 guns per 100 people here. On the records, God knows what it is now. It's probably double that. I even, on the records, the Americans have they're 88 or probably now 90 guns per 100 people in the States. But I think it's probably higher than that here in Canada. It's just, again, not everything ever got registered, right? So, that type of thing. But anyway, yeah, EU Army in space, that could be interesting. I think that's an anticipation of NATO breaking up. The EU, again, I'm not, like, Canada and the United States having joint border exercises and stuff like that. I'm okay with that. Why? Because we're bordering nations. I'm not against, the Eastern Europeans working together for their own kind of NATO, or even with the Russian, Chinese, and the Indians and the Iranians working for their own kind of form of NATO. Fine. Everybody has a big stick, and everybody has partners. But the hegemonic NATO that we have now is just death and destruction. The Middle East is burning because of it, and because of the United Nations, and because of the Anglo-American Empire, the petrodollar, transatlantic Anglo-American dollar fighting the Eurasian Pacific Empire. So these two empires are fighting. And I've talked about that many times. Okay, the T-14 Armata tank. I guess I'll finish up with that. It has it's an upgrade from the T-90. It's a 3-man crew. It's a manless turret. This thing is actually turning out, if it's as good as advertised. Like anything, are they as good as advertised? It's going to be production isn't estimated to start till 2018. India is supposed to buy, there's supposed to be a total of 4,000 made. I can't remember if 2,500 is going to India and the rest are staying in Russia, or vice versa. There's going to be a fair amount of these things built. And I'm sure once they tool up, once they're tooled up and ready to go, the Russians will pop these things out quite quickly. They do have the anti-tank thing, radar jamming, UV blinding, and all the countermeasures you can imagine on this thing for missiles. But what's really impressive, they can apparently hit targets up to 5 miles away. I don't know if the longest tank kill, I think, is the British Challenger tank. Don't quote me on the distance, but it's something like almost 3 miles. Or it might, 3 kilometers, something like that. So that's like a mile, 1.8 miles or something like that. 3 kilometers ish. Somebody will. Mind you, there was a Challenger tank. Not Challenger tank. There was a Challenger 2 that did that. And then there was on the Golan Heights. There was an Israeli tank that took out. Mind you, because it was up so high, I guess it got. It was taken out. It was an old Centurion tank. It got lucky. It was taking out all these Syrian tanks at crazy distances. There was that. But the average tank is going to, like the Canadian tanks, the Leopards we have, the average kill range is 11 to 1,200 meters, maybe a little further now. 2,000 meters is kind of everybody's moving up to with the Abrams and stuff like that. The T-90 is supposed to be able to do out to 2,700 meters. The T-14, 5 miles. 5 miles is 8,000 meters, or about 8 kilometers. That's pretty damn crazy. Now, is that with the main gun? I don't think so. It's probably with some sort of anti-tank, anti-low flying, because even the T-72 had this, I forget the name of the missile. It come out the barrel, and it could fly out to those distances. And it would shoot down low-flying helicopters, anti-tank weapon, that type of thing. And I can't remember how far it went. It didn't go that far, but the Israeli Merkava, Merkava 5, I guess, is their latest. It has like a gun battery or whatever. And it has basically these, looks like revolver spools. And there's like 4 or 5 rounds in each one in the Merkava, and it shoots, you can select it to shoot a regular anti-tank round, a, kind of a shrapnel round, and then, or an anti-tank weapon, guided weapon as well. This is a little different. This turret, I don't know what the internal workings are. I know the driver, the commander, and the gunner sit up in the very front of the tank, and the turret is all pretty much automated, which isn't really that much of a handicap because it's probably all hydraulic for the most part, which keeps it simple, but the optics are all digital and all that type of thing. However, if this is correct, I'll just get away from the phone. It rings 100 million times before. If this is correct, this thing could put out 100 rounds a minute. Think about that. A tank that can shoot 100 rounds a minute. That is incredible. The best gunner crews probably can only shoot at a rate of maybe 20 rounds a minute. 15, 20 rounds a minute. That's, 2 loaders and maybe some guys could do a little faster than that. I doubt it. But 100 rounds a minute, wow, that's more than a round a second. That's can it do that? Now, can it do that and get them on target? I don't know. But that's pretty much like having a deck gun, which I always thought about that concept too, was like a deck gun on a tank. You look at a warship with a deck gun. The deck gun, it really isn't much bigger than the main of the barrel, a main gun on a tank. They're anywhere from 76 millimeter right up to 105 millimeter deck guns. You have probably getting bigger than that now, and they're like three rounds a second type of thing. So I'm like, why don't they do that with a tank? But then you think about it, it's the layout of the tank is basically you got your gunner, your observer, your commander, observer, and your loader in there. So you got 3 or 4 guys in the turret and 1 driver. So the guys are in the way of all the automated stuff. So in other words, what they did with the Armata is they put a deck gun on the Armata. It's basically this is no different than a warship with tracks. It's that kind of concept. Plus, usually where the only downside is now the front of the tank, the frontal armor has to be that much better because the Merkava, the Challenger, the Leopard, they offset the driver. They don't put the driver right in the center. In the center, like most old Soviet tanks, where you just aim for the center, you'll kill the driver. Now it's like, okay, well, most people are going to aim center of mass on a tank from tank to tank. They're either going to aim for the turret or they're going to aim for where the driver is. So that's why in the Merkava the engine is in the front instead of in the back. So it's kind of really like an extremely, extremely heavy APC, whereas with the Armata, it's still the Russian philosophy of light fast tank. Now, I haven't seen this thing flying through the air yet, but the footage that's out there on the T-14 does seem to be pretty good. Now, the Russians don't have this thing perfected yet, but I think they got a platform that's starting off, and I would imagine it's probably going to run on 10 types of fuels like most old Soviet tanks. They could pretty much run on anything from crude oil up. The only thing they can't run on is probably water, and even at that, probably Armata will. The other thing is that they basically are low maintenance. Like the T-80s, they're probably their highest maintenance tank that they've had. The T-90 came out of, because the jet-powered T-80s, even though they were more mobile and faster, which were the upgrades to the T-72, the T-90, new chassis, some commonality between the T-80, but a diesel engine, and for reliability and lower maintenance. Basically, what they did with the T-80, I think, is they took the Hind helicopter, the Hind 24 engine, and put it in. And it just sucked up too much fuel. So the T-80s, still a pretty impressive tank, very fast. They started getting, that's when the reactive armor started coming in. The T-90s that they have right now, the Russians, what they're going to do before they get the Armata rolled out is upgrade some of the technologies of the Armata onto the new T-90s with the active reactive armor. If you haven't seen that, basically, depending on what rounds, if it's a 30 millimeter round coming in, it'll hit the armor and explode off, like the briquettes normally do. But if it's like, I'll have to wrap this up real quick here. If it's like a missile coming in, it blows off just before the missile hits, the anti-tank missile hits. So that's active reactive armor. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So anyway, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Next to that, shirts will be coming out fairly soon, hopefully, maybe in a couple of weeks. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourself, be true to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. Good day, hi, and welcome. All right, World War III update. Okay, I'm always trying to do these bizarre beginnings. I got you guys good on one there when I went like that. I was pretending I was talking, but there was like no sound. I could imagine some of you. Oh my God, my headphones, my speakers, what's going on? It wasn't very nice, but I thought it was funny. All right, World War III update. It's Neil Mishwash. Oh, it's not too bad. I always have to make sure my camera lighting is the worst possible at all times in the worst resolution. It is a skill that I have. I mean, again, I probably have the most popular YouTuber with the worst camera resolution. I probably hold the record for it. I swear to God. But whatever. These things don't require a lot of high production quality. This one's going to be predominantly around Syria. I'm almost afraid to turn on the news now. Like I really am, because the mainstream media does not respect the conspiracy realm. And here's what I mean. They keep calling us conspiracy theorists, and then they keep agreeing with us. It's like, which is it? Pick one. I will do a video on I don't have all the details. I might wait a day or two. I know a lot of people want me to do things right away, but sometimes I like to wait a day or two about the bombing that went on in New York State there. There was one was in Syracuse, the other one was in somewhere in New York City, I think. 29 injured or whatever. I still don't know all the details about it. I'm sure it'll be all over the news today, so I'll cover that out. I just want to, because I know there's going to be, right away, it's to the point where conspiracy flies. But I will bring it on this. This might be a cover for something else. Sometimes, usually when events like this just happen out of nowhere, sometimes there's something else going on in the world that, but then again, there's always so much going on. Is it coincidence? I don't know. We do live in crazy times. So, I guess I'm going to start with Israel on this one. The Israeli government is preparing for a drill. They're anticipating in the next war 230,000 missiles to be coming at them. Now, they're mostly talking Hezbollah rockets and stuff like that, little stuff, but they're probably also talking about Iran. Now, Iran, how many rockets do they have, long-range rockets do they have? Some people estimate around 1,500. I've heard 500 to 1,500, 200 to tens of thousands. We really don't know, because Iran has their long-range rockets about 1,500 feet underground or something like that in these, basically they're going to shoot at their natural crevices where they can shoot these rockets out, ballistic rockets out, and they can land wherever. And we know that the ballistic range of some of these rockets is 1,200, 1,300 miles. they'll reach into southern Europe from there. So that type of thing. And Israel said, and this came out of the Cole and Powell email leaks, that Israel is prepared, or in retaliation to Iran, to use 200 nukes against them. Now, when you ask Israel whether they have nuclear warheads or not, and there's estimated again with nukes that they have between, I guess, 200 and 600 and something is what I've heard. God knows how many they would have. Israel's official statement is no comment. Now, this also kind of goes against the law a bit, where Israel basically is, basically the U.S. is not supposed to render aid to people with nuclear weapons. And they just got a pay raise, by the way. So I don't know how much Canada will be kicking in here. But the Israelis are getting now $38 billion from the U.S. To ramp up things. So again, $38 billion, that's not going to helping homeless vets. That's not going to creating jobs in the United States. It's just going to Israel, because Israel, for some reason, is your best ally in the Middle East, or the Saudi Arabia. I don't know which one it is. You keep hearing those two are the best allies in the Middle East. But that said, the U.S. aid is kind of illegal, because they're not supposed to be giving it to, particularly people with nuclear weapons. But that's what came out of the Colin Powell leaks. Also, Israel is putting out a new spy satellite, the OVAC, and this thing again is I guess that's a part of the $38 billion in aid. Maybe that's the last round of aid being sucked up. I don't know. The thing about that is, again, we see the constant the constant ramping up for war. Now, should I jump into that right away? Yeah, maybe I will. Okay. Or should I? Yeah. Okay. No. I'll go to South Korea. I'll keep it in the line I got, because I find this stuff at random, so I got to kind of put it in at random. So anyway, Israel again. I think the writing's on the wall for Israel. Just because you can't create all that destabilization, and a lot of people, what do you mean destabilization? There's, Israel's, always the victim. It's always the victim. Well, it's not. The Greater Israel Project, I think, is going to be what destroys Israel. Because you can't balkanize and arm all these jihadi groups. And if you have any doubt that the United States and Israel are backing these ISIS, after what happened in last night and the night before, or whatever, from the making of this video, I think is pretty clear who's arming who. But anyway, again, ISIS, the luckiest jihadists on the planet. They can, avoid radar. They find all kinds of weapons, and everything always seems to work in their favor for some reason. Again, the goal is to overthrow Assad. So again, we had those 2 Mossad agents last year. Again, don't be afraid to go over some of my older World War III updates, because some of the information there, what happens back there, sometimes you see, okay, something going on back there, and then you see it playing out now. It's connecting these dots, right? And again, I'm not trying to demonize the Jewish people. I do have a thing about the Jewish elites with the Zionism, the neoconism, whatever you want to call it. Neocon is like the politically correct version of a Zionist, basically. All wars for Israel, all wars are bankers' wars, all wars are for Israel, for the Greater Israel Project. And if you don't know about the Greater Israel Project, you need to go do a little bit of history on it. I already did a big video on it, and it kind of tells you everything that they planned back then, we're seeing now. It's not a coincidence. All this stuff is not, ISIS didn't just come out of nowhere. These people are, again, most of these guys are poorer than dirt. Their AKs, if they were funding themselves, their AKs would be out of bullets in 5 minutes. That type of thing. But yet, their rifles never run out of ammo. These are people that can't even afford to eat. So how can they afford something like that? Somebody has to be supplying them. Now, I'm not saying the Russians are saints either. Again, you got to look at it as a no good guys in charge. The world banks are basically using the people against each other to prop up. Again, every bullet that's fired, every bomb that drops is a piece of debt being cycled. The United States has a debt and death-based economy. Max Kaiser coined that, and I think he hit the nail on the head so well on that. I bring it up all the time because it makes sense. You either take our currency, the petrol